In this video we're going to be creating a realistic island surrounded by sea in ArtRage Vitae. My name is Glynn and welcome to Role-Playing Cartography. Hello and welcome to this video. So today I'm going to draw an island, but it's going to end up being a terrain kind of realistic topography map. I've set up a canvas in ArtRage and I've added some brushes. So I've got a pencil brush and some ink brushes and a texture brush. We'll probably add some other texture brushes on later. And I've set up some layers, so I've got a sketch which I'm going to draw the outline that I want initially on a layer that I can just switch on and off. And then an ink layer for drawing the ink outline of the island that we create. Then I've got the sea and some texture to add to the sea, land and some texture to add to the land. And I might decide to add other layers on after to bring certain things out. So what we'll do to start off with is draw the rough shape of the island that we'd like to ink. So I'm going to select the sketch layer, the pencil tool that I've got, and some it's black ink, and just roughly let's come up with an outline. Now I'm thinking, because this is an island, we'll have some rough craggy areas and then maybe some natural bays. And this maybe is a bit of a headland. Okay, and then we'll have some smaller features off here. Okay, so I'm reasonably happy with that as an outline. We'll switch to ink, and then I'm going to use an ink brush. It's kind of set to what I would draw using a 0.8mm traditional pen, and I've got a 0.2, a 0.1 and a 0.05. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit and start tracing this outline I've created. I don't have to stick rigidly to it. I can deviate off and maybe create some new parts that I want. I'll also maybe add some kind of river mouths, so that, you know, things draining from the high ground in the island can spill out into the sea itself. So let's start. So this would be a good place for a river mouth. Just making a slight V shape. Okay, so you can see now we've got an outline. and I'll switch off the sketch layer behind it, and now we will drop some sea colour across the whole of the drawing. I'm going to choose a kind of greeny teal sea colour, and I'm going to add that to my sample so I've always got it there if I need it. And then I'm just going to, I could use the paint bucket tool, which probably would have been a whole bunch easier to show you. Current layout set, yeah. There's lots of ways of making things easier, and sometimes I just don't use them. Prefer the hard way. Okay, so sea texture. Before I do sea texture, actually, I just want to add some variation into the sea colour. So this is it's actually a felt pen set to kind of a blending mode. So blending markers here. So I've got this colour that I've selected. I'm just going to go a bit lighter, just add in some bits of variation. Maybe go a little bit lighter, especially in the areas where the sea is thinner because it's on a shelf of or a bank kind of underneath. Then select that tool again, come a little bit darker, maybe more around the edges, and then we'll use a kind of rough blending tool. Just to ruffle that up a little bit. Basically just so you don't see the texture of the blender brush. Or it's not that obvious. Okay. What I'll do now, I'm dropping onto the sea texture layer, and I'm going to use this texture brush that I've got. I'm going to select the original colour of the sea. I'm going to come a step lighter, and then where it's lighter I'm going to go around the outside of the island. Drop another step lighter, and then we'll come darker. Kind of doing the same sorts of thing that I tend to go for darker colours out on the edges where the sea would be deeper. And you can play about with blend modes and opacity on texture layers. So we could use a soft light, and you can see how that just sort of gives it a different appearance. We could use the overlay. It creates some nice extra variations in the colour. I quite like that. It looks sort of tropical. Hello, Glynn from Monkey Blood Design here. This is the point in the video where I remind you to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, share and comment. Thank you. So the next stage is we're going to select the land layer, but we want to basically fill the land, and the way to do that is we're using the select tool, the magic wand, and we've got that currently set to current layer only. So if we select the ink layer, and we'll select the outside of the island, and then we're going to invert the selection, so now only the land mass is selected, but we're on the ink layer, so we drop to the land layer. Now when we apply the brush to the canvas now, it will only fill in the land layer. So we're going to pick a kind of neutral land colour that we want. So probably let's go for this green. Okay, so now double checking that I've got the land layer selected. I can basically just fill all that in. Again, I can do this with the paintbrush tool, the paint bucket tool. Okay. If you've watched previous videos, you'll see where I have this love-hate relationship. It's mainly a hate relationship with the fact that the selection doesn't really take into account the anti-aliasing, so you get this really annoying feature. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to export just that land layer, I'm going to put it into Photoshop, I'm going to contract the land by 2 pixels all the way around and then bring it back in so I don't get that. So that's what I'm doing now. Okay, so I've got the new land as a separate TIFF file, and I'm just going to remove that land and drop in the new one into a new layer. Click accept, and you can see now I don't have that annoying overlap. So what I can do now is control click the land layer, so it's selected the land itself and it's contracted by 2 pixels, so that's good. And I can jump onto the land texture. So I can add some variations here to the colour. I've got this one that I've selected, but towards the edges we might have some more beachy type colours, so I'm going to add some samples on for that. Maybe some dirtier, rocky, muddy areas, maybe some more stony type areas, and then we'll put a few beach suggestions in. Actually, what we can do, like we did with the sea, we just drop to the land layer, and we can add on some colours onto the land layer itself. And I'm doing this really rough. In the middle, the central part of the land will be elevated, and then all the water will run off down into the sea. So we'll have some different coloured areas here. Again, at the moment this is super rough, which is fine. Okay, I'm going to mix that up now. Now you'll notice as well, the blending is basically dragging in transparency from the edges, and all I do there is I add another layer of land underneath it, paint bucket tool, switch to green, current layer only. We just fill these back up. But you'll see this variation in the land colour is still evident. So we'll probably actually stay on this kind of different coloured land layer, and we'll add in some variations to the green as well. So maybe the south side is a little bit more jungly. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. What I'll do now is I'll just drop these 2 layers down, I'll merge them down together. So we've just got one land layer now. And then we'll drop onto the land texture. Bear in mind I've still got the land layer selected. But texture wise we can do very similar thing. Just add some texture. Okay, pretty happy with that. So now, there's two more things I want to do. I want to add some elevation and some height to this. And the second thing I want to do is I want to add some kind of suggestion of forest or trees. So we'll tackle the mountainous stuff first. So I'm going to create a layer called Mountains 1, and we will set the blend mode to overlay. I'm just trying to remember how to do this. And we'll set some layer effects for embossing. We'll probably come back into these settings. In fact, we'll do that. Let's drop some mountainy stuff in. So I'm using a white paintbrush, and actually wrong tool. I want to use this texture brush. Colors set to white. I'm on the mountains layer. And that doesn't look very interesting at the moment, but actually it's multiply, so we're multiplying that layer. That's it. And then we're going to pull up the emboss effects. We'll have the opacity as 100. We'll have sharp contours. And you can see now exactly that did it immediately. We're going to increase the depth, and we'll increase the radius a little bit. You can see as you're increasing the radius, that's what governs the height. You can see there the mountains plateaued, whereas we want to come full radius. Now the light, where the light comes from, now this is going to be important because you can see where the shadows cast for the mountains. So let's go 50%. No, let's go 66%, and that's tick for global light. That means any other layers that I use global light, they'll all have the light coming from the same direction. The only time where I would change that is if I was doing the exact opposite of this to create crevices in the ground. Then you alter the direction of the light, so you switch global light off and then come the other side. So with that set, I'm now going to add more white in where I want it. I'm trying to raise these mountain ridges. I'm just adding a little bit of light, kind of textury effect to some of these other areas. Okay. Now at the moment this just looks too computer generated. So I have another little trick that I do, which is I'll duplicate mountains 1, I'll clear the contents of it. Let's rename it Mountains 2. And I basically use the same method. I just go over the top of it. So you can see it's basically taking some of that horrible computer generatedness out of the textures. And you can basically do this as many times, creating as many layers for that as you need to. So we can do that again, duplicate, clear the layer, Mountains 3, and then we'll just taking out some of the areas that look a little bit too procedurally drawn. They will all have the global light setting for the same direction, so you can see that the light is again coming from this direction. But you can also see now that's starting to look pretty good. Might just have some mountains just across the edge there. And because we've got this selection in place, you notice nothing's running off the edge of the landmass. It's basically going down to the sea, which is a kind of bonus of doing it. Okay. So I would say I'm pretty happy with that at the moment. So what we want to do now is we're going to add some jungle, woodland. And I'll just set a darker colour for the trees. And there's a texture brush that I tend to like to do this. I think it's called Lumpy Lichen somewhere. There we go, Lumpy Lichen. I'm going to add that to my toolbox so it appears there. And then on a separate layer that I've called Woodlands, I'm going to add in some Lumpy Lichen. And I can probably play with the layer effects of this again using an emboss. The texture's already quite lumpy, although it is the lighting effect is if it's from the top direction. So I'll see if I can do anything to mess around with that. You'll see the light set to the global direction. If I just switch it off, you'll see it does now give me that matching effect from the mountains. Sometimes these sliders are a little bit slow to respond in ArtRage. You can see. You can also change the ways in which the embossing effect works as well. So you could have the lighter colour be a nice orangey sun colour. You can see it just sort of picked up the orange in some of the highlighting there. And this could be a darker green colour. So I'm reasonably happy with that, I think. Again, these are very slow to respond sometimes. The radius is probably not going to matter too much. Let's OK that. And you can see now we've got a map that's really starting to look like it's a viable place to explore. So let's just drop the selection. And I think what we'll do now is we're going to take this into Photoshop in the next episode. We'll play about with the colours and things, and maybe add some texture. We'll also add the contours around the island itself. And then after that we'll have another episode where we take it into Affinity Designer and look at adding labels and such. So that's it for now. I will export a lot of these layers as separate files, separate TIFF files, and then I can put them into Photoshop as I need them and move them about. So that's it for the moment. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you found something useful. Why not consider supporting what I do here by heading over to the Monkey Blood web store at www.monkeyblooddesign.co.uk. Check out handy maps, handy A5 size maps that you can use as game inspiration. There's towns and villages, buildings and structures, and dungeons, caves and strange locales, and you can use these within your game as inspiration, populate them for your players to explore and pillage. Enjoy. Thank you.